Throughout history, some experiments have pushed the limits of science but sparked heated controversy due to ethical concerns, human suffering, or long-term consequences. These 10 experiments changed science forever, but at a heavy moral cost, teaching us important lessons about the balance between discovery and ethics. A high school teacher created a fascist movement in his classroom to demonstrate how easily people could be manipulated into authoritarian obedience, conducted by Musée Frischera. This social psychology experiment divided boys at a summer camp into rival groups to study intergroup conflict and cooperation. While it demonstrated how easily prejudice and hostility can arise, the participants weren't fully informed, and the psychological effects of induced rivalry raised concerns about the ethical treatment of minors in experiments. The experiment spiraled out of control as students began enforcing rules and bullying classmates. Rosenhan and others feigned mental illness to gain admission to psychiatric hospitals, then acted normally to test the reliability of psychiatric diagnoses. The study exposed serious flaws in mental health care, but was criticized for putting hospital staff and patients through distress without their knowledge or consent. Babies were placed on a glass-covered platform that appeared to drop sharply, testing depth perception. Although the experiment advanced developmental psychology, concerns arose over potential distress caused to infants who were placed in a fearful situation without parental consent for this specific test. Filmed as a short social lesson, it revealed chilling insights into groupthink and conformity, but was criticized for manipulating minors without full consent, and negatively reinforced his study's stuttering, highlighting ongoing ethical challenges when researching vulnerable populations. They remind us how vital it is to uphold respect, transparency, and consent in any scientific pursuit to protect human dignity. This brutal experiment violated human rights and medical ethics, demonstrating how science can be weaponized by oppressive regimes with devastating personal consequences. While this revealed vital insights into human behavior in crises, the deception and psychological stress caused to unwitting participants raised ethical questions about informed consent and emotional harm. First is the Milgram experiment as lesser-known counterpart, the third wave experiment conducted by Ron Jones in 1967. Next is the monster study as counterpart, the Robbers Cave experiment of 1954. The study was uncovered decades later, exposing blatant human rights abuses and causing global outrage over medical ethics. Third is the infamous David Reimer case, often called the Joan experiment. Details remain classified, but survivors reported severe psychological trauma, underscoring the dark intersection of espionage and human experimentation. After a botched circumcision, David was raised as a girl following psychologist John Money's controversial theory that gender identity is mainly learned. Despite Money's claims of success, David struggled with identity issues his entire life, eventually reverting to living as male. This case highlighted the profound ethical problems in experimental gender reassignment and informed consent in psychology. The fourth controversial study is the bystander effect experiment by John Darley and Bibb Latané in 1968. They staged emergencies to observe whether bystanders would help victims when others were present. Fifth is the David Rosenhan Being Sane in Insane Places experiment from 1973. Sixth is the Aversion Project in apartheid South Africa, where homosexual soldiers were subjected to chemical castration and electroshock therapy to cure them. Seventh is the Little Albert Experiment's ethical cousin, the Visual Cliff study by Eleanor Gibson and Richard Walk in 1960. Eighth is the Willowbrook State School Hepatitis Study's lesser-known contemporary, the Monster Study as follow-up in speech pathology where children were misled. Ninth is the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, as counterpart the Guatemala Syphilis Experiment 1946 to 1948, where U.S. researchers deliberately infected Guatemalan prisoners and mental patients with syphilis without their consent to test treatments. Finally, the Project McDelta, a CIA program that experimented with psychological warfare techniques involving drugs and hypnosis on unwitting individuals to manipulate behavior during the Cold War. Each of these experiments contributed valuable scientific knowledge, but crossed crucial ethical boundaries that caused harm and controversy.